Good morning. Welcome to Made by Me's digital experience. I'm Laura, Programs Coordinator here at Grey Roots Museum and Archives, and I'm so glad that you could join us today because we are going to be exploring our Cute as a Button painting experience. Before we get started, I'll just go over some housekeeping things. So if you're watching live, remember that your camera should be muted as well as your microphone. If you have any questions, just enter them into the chat box and we will answer them. If you're watching the recorded version of this, you're welcome to send us an email if you have any questions. So before we get started, we are gonna go do a special trip over to our collections department with Jacob to explore a special button in our collection. So I'll let you get over there and see what you can learn from our collection.
Hello, my name is Jacob Freilich, a summer student at Grey Roots Museum and Archives, and this is our collections room. Today, I will be talking about this button, one of the artifacts in our collection. Now this button is likely from sometime during the 1860s, which is around 160 years ago. Made of jet and brass, this button was from the Canadian militia. It can be identified due to the small banners on it which say Canada Militia, which are surrounded by maple leaves and vines with a royal crown at the center. This button was originally owned by William Sutton, who was born in 1811 at Home Castle, Lincolnshire, England. Mr. Sutton emigrated to Canada in the 1830s, where he found work at the Credit Indian Mission near Lake Ontario, where he assisted the Ojibwe peoples at the mission. It is here that he later met and married his wife, Nanebawekwe, known in English as Catherine Sutton. They later moved northward in the mid-1840s to the area now known as the Sarawak Township in Grey County. Here, they assisted the Nawash Band of Ojibwe and performed missionary activities. When this button was donated, the museum was told that Mr. Sutton had worn it at the St. Clair frontier, where he served the Canadian militia. It is unknown how long Mr. Sutton served or what his rank was, but this button corresponds with historical records that mention his service, such as the 1880 H. Belden Illustrated Historical Atlas that contains an illustration of Mr. Sutton as well as a brief biography. Mr. Sutton's wife passed away on September of 1865, and Mr. Sutton himself passed away later in 1894. It is unknown where he has been buried. I find this artifact particularly interesting as it shows how something as simple as a button can be a key part in understanding the past. That's all I have to say for today, and I hope you enjoyed.
And that was amazing. It's very interesting to see the buttons we have in our collection. Because when I was growing up, buttons were always around our house. My mom did a lot of sewing. And so there was always a big old peanut butter jar full of buttons that I like to play with. So when I was thinking about ideas about art to create, I was like, oh, buttons. So you will have a little envelope in your package that's full of buttons. So what I like to do is just have a look at the buttons and just see kind of, what I could make with them. So I have like a couple of flower buttons. I think this is a snowflake. There's a bit of a heart, or there's another flower. So, ooh, that one's got stripes. There's a lot of different ones. Now, when I was making this painting for today, I was like, oh, what could I do that's a little bit different? So buttons are round, kind of like tires. So I think I'm going to create kind of like roads. Now, actually, I'll just grab my original one. So my original painting was it was inspired by Vincent. So it was a painting that he had done of cypress trees. So it was very impressionistic, and was it post-impressionism? So I went on the internet and I looked up some pictures, and I really liked the swirls in the sky and then also in the grass. And then Vincent really liked to use yellow. So I knew I had some yellow buttons and some yellow paint. So I just made sure that I did added quite a bit of yellow as well when I was trying to make the button flowers. So for the painting that I'm going to work on now, I'm actually going to go not to the past, but to the present. And there's an artist who makes books. And you might have heard of him, Todd Parr. And Todd Parr makes a lot of really bright colors, simple shapes, but they really tell a story. So I started out today just making some basic shapes, and then I'm going to make some vehicles. So I'm going to use some of my buttons. Ooh, yeah. To create the shapes. So I kind of have a couple of road areas, and then I'll just think about which way I want to put my buttons, and then I will kind of sketch them out, mark out where I want to go, and then I'm going to add my shapes. So with your paint, you were given some red, some yellow and blue, and then black and white. So within these colors, you will be able to mix whatever you need. On your instruction sheet, there is a color wheel, and it'll kind of help you know what to add to get from like red and blue to make purple, or if you're doing blue and yellow makes green, and if you want red and yellow, it makes orange, and then all of the different shades in between. And then you can add some white and some black as needed to make things a little bit lighter or darker. And you can really play with it and get a lot of different tones and shapes. And think about when you're starting what you want to paint, what kind of style you want to paint in. One of the best things to come out of the last little bit, and especially with the age of the internet, is that you can visit art online. So for Vincent's picture, I was able to go online, and it's actually with the Met in the United States, and they have the picture of the painting, and then they also have information about it. There's even an audio aspect that I could push play and listen to a curator describe the piece of art, but also just like why he was painting that, why he was interested in the cypress trees. So it's very, very interesting what you're able to do. Now, in your instructions, there's also a list of different places you can visit. That's just a small snippet of what you could visit. So if you have any sort of specific interest in art, you can Google with parents or a guardian and get more information to get some inspiration for your paintings, because all of these paintings are going to look very different. And even between my two, they're two different time periods, two different continents. And so it's really going to be interesting to see what you can create using your canvas, your primary colors with some white, black, and a handful of buttons. And don't think that you only can use those buttons or you have to use all of the buttons. Just use whatever you would like. If you have other buttons lying around the house that you would like to use instead, you can do that. You could even, I was considering using some felt to make some of the vehicle cutouts or some different types of paper to make it more of a layered collage or assemblage. It's whatever you want to create. And it'd just be really interesting if you're able to share what you work on. So if you have if you're really, really happy with what you want to do or what you've created, make sure you share it with us, and make sure you also sign your painting. So when it's done, you can sign your painting. Now, Vincent, he always just wrote Vincent because he knew people wouldn't be able to pronounce his last name. In Canada or in the US, it's Vincent van Gogh, but in his native Dutch, it's actually pronounced completely different. So you can just go with your first name or your first name, last name, your initials, but you always should make sure you sign your paintings, and also date them. So in the future, if someone's doing research about you and your art, they know exactly when it was created. So we'll just have a quick look and see if there are any questions. And there are no questions, which is perfect, but if you have any, don't forget to ask. And we hope you have a really great time creating this Made by Me experience. And don't forget, if you have something you would like to share, you can email it to me, or you can post it and just tag hashtag MBM Gray Roots, so Made by Me Gray Roots. So thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.